Well, let me present you the chicken house.
We're in the chicken house! We're in the chicken house! We're in the chicken...
I landed in Bucharest at 10 p.m. via Tarnovo, Romania's budget airline, aboard one of the only 90s Airbuses still in commission. In central Bucharest, I checked into the least welcoming, most paranoid and bizarre hotel I've ever stayed in. I'm not sure what was going on there, but I was not invited. You weren't allowed to take your room key off the premises at all. You had to leave it with reception every time, even though at night there was no reception. So if you were coming back at night, you had to buzz the front gate, which would wake up this very angry intercom man who had to take a lot of convincing to believe that you were staying there. It was a lot of work and arguing. Getting this door buzzed open was an achievement every time. At one point, I think he was asking for more money to let me in. Looking at some other reviews now, other visitors have reported missing belongings and being mistakenly charged for the minibar. The only time I saw any other guest was my last night when the restaurant was open and full of elderly people, all who became quiet and looked at me when I opened the door. Whatever I interrupted, I'm sorry. I've read that paranoia was a defining feature of the Ceausescu era. So as unpleasant as this experience was, it had a sort of authenticity. In fact, everywhere you look in Bucharest has lingering remnants of that time. The gray, blocky apartments, the lavish fountains, the opulent government palaces. The Palace of Parliament is the world's heaviest building, weighing at 1.5 billion pounds. It was financially devastating to the Romanian people, and therefore the fitting site of Ceausescu's final speech as the revolution began, and you can see the exact moment he realizes they've turned on him. At a nearby bar, an engineer was telling me he actually helped design it, and that Ceausescu wasn't even satisfied with that much, and wanted to tear it down and make an even grander palace. He was telling me the difficult time they were having finding a way to tell him with its sheer weight, 5 basement floors, and miles of tunnels, that idea was virtually architecturally impossible. He was just a guy at a bar, but I don't know, he was old, I believe him. By the way, this was the bar. During our conversation, so I guess a Romanian drill rap basement show had started. I don't know why everyone was acting like they were filming it with their phones. The screens were all off. The group had water bottles and were spitting into the audience until the crowd turned on them and the venue made them stop. In every way Bucharest was challenging, Brașov was super pleasant, gorgeous too. At the hostel I made friends with Christian and Jenny.
Pizza, pizza, pizza. Pizza, pizza, pizza. I'm gonna have some pizza. Pizza, pizza, pizza.
Finnish and German journalists just coming from Ukraine. We went for drinks and... boy did we go for drinks.
We're in the chicken house! We're in the chicken house! We're in the chicken house! We're in the chicken house!
Do you sleep here?
Duh.
3, 2, 1, now you're Texas boy again.
You goddamn gas station sandwich boys, get the fuck out of my yard! No.
We drank with a Johnny Depp impersonator / Istanbul-based real estate agent and ended up at his hostel, which he claimed was empty.
Surprise!
What the fuck, bro?
Not sure why, but the next day I had an excruciating headache, and a pharmacy in Bran offered me these gigantic purple pills. As I stepped into Dracula Castle, it occurred to me that they have possibly sold me something much stronger over the counter than I could get at home. Hello? It's gonna turn around. It's gonna turn around. I was a dizzy boy. In the first room, they immediately disenchant you. Hey guys, Vlad the Impaler never lived here. He might have spent a few days here once. Bram Stoker never came to Romania. He was in Ireland and probably saw this in a book. And we're only guessing from his description of the bricks that it was maybe, probably, definitely inspired by this particular castle. All that aside, it's a pretty neat old castle where a lot of Transylvanian royalty lived. I paid a little extra to see the torture device exhibit, which was really cool and fucked up. My original plan was to head west into Serbia and keep going until hopefully making it to the Dalmatian coast by Orthodox Easter. It did not occur to me just how difficult leaving Romania by rail in this direction would be, and with limited information online and the amount of ticket windows closed in my face, I lost 2 more days in Bucharest figuring out what to do. So I turned to Bulgaria, which wasn't even a place I considered. I had no way of predicting the sheer amount of warmth, kindness, natural beauty, and new friends that were waiting on the other side of the Danube. It also feels worth mentioning, I hope I didn't sound too disparaging on Romania because I did love it too, and I loved how unpredictable and challenging it was. Definitely visit, it's gorgeous and fun.
Do you sleep here?
Cześć, tak.
The immediate vibe shift over the border was hard to describe. Even though I didn't have cell data, didn't have Wi-Fi, couldn't find anywhere to change currency, and was now on a train towards a village I knew virtually nothing about, a weird sense of calm came over me. The train was uncomfortable and at least 50 years old. The power went out pretty often. As the sun went down, the little stations we passed looked like the same Lego set in Guy, each one with their own animal companion. Veliko Tarnovo was worth the gamble and one of the nicest places I've ever been. Super inexpensive, rich in history, and largely unspoiled by hordes of tourists. I almost didn't want to mention it in this video. It also appeared to be a paradise for cats. There's a kitty everywhere you look, and unlike places that view them as vermin, everyone here seemed to love and take care of them.
It is possible that you will meet reptiles. In case of an emergency, dial 111.
Got lizards up there? In 3 days there, I would say my only unpleasant moment at all was getting chased by a pack of dogs while approaching a trail to see a waterfall, while a guy listening to metal on his balcony was pointing and laughing like that Simpsons kid. At the hostel, I met Simon from Switzerland, who had just quit his accounting job to travel the world. And where do you start with someone like Georgi? I think you only meet a Georgi a few times in life. Georgi offered us his friend's homemade wine, and we got to know him over the course of the night, even though he didn't know a word of English, and our entire conversation would be via robot voices on his translation app.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you.
The next night night, we went with Georgi to a club with live music, and these two singers sort of wandered around the room and would sing towards tables. I loved that when it was time for them to do a smoke break, they would sit at a table in full view and just not hide their drop in enthusiasm. The best part, though, was the musician dual-wielding keyboards and just so casually shredding so much ass. Georgi said he was driving to the countryside to his mom's house for Easter and offered for us to come along. After talking it over with Simon, we decided if we went together, we would take a chance on Georgi. So we said okay, and he drove us west for 3 hours, and I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty on edge since I had never done anything like this before, and I had no cell service or any real idea where we were going at all. At one point, we stopped behind a building and someone gave Georgi an entire trunk's worth of meat. We delivered some to a restaurant, and the rest, I suppose, went towards our holiday weekend. In the small village of Byala, Slatina, we were greeted by Georgi's little dogs, Betty and Anastasia. Everyone in town seemed to also have little chihuahuas and pinschers. His family was so incredibly friendly and made meal after meal of amazing food. Rabbit, fresh vegetables, watermelon with feta, lamb that was alive only hours before, almost always accompanied by a very sour and extremely rare yogurt found only in Bulgaria, because its bacteria is so patriotic it dies shortly after leaving the country. Georgi has a homemade swimming pool made from Roman stones he found throughout childhood. Georgi has an abandoned Nazi warehouse in his yard. Georgi has a friend Dito, whose garlic farm is where we spent an afternoon sipping rakia.
Brother?
If you don't know it, rakia is the most popular drink in the Balkans. Imagine a super strong moonshine brandy made with whatever fruit is around or in season, almost always homemade and regularly kept in 2-liter Coke bottles. As we left the farm, I was asked to hold the loose plate of Slatina, or pork fat, in the car as a donkey obstructed the road.
Donkey in the road. Super stress.
Now we're going to show you a very well-groomed home.
Wait, go back. His name wasn't really Dito, was it? One day, we had a picnic roasting sausages on an ancient canyon. On the way there, he showed us an abandoned town, 2 abandoned schools, a 1,000-year-old church, and we did some 1998 Subaru off-roading.
Off-road?
Кой е то?
Цец Тинчев.
Happy Easter.
Easter.
Oh. Not yet.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I got you. Whoa, no. Easter I actually don't have much footage from because I was enjoying the moment so much. I've never been welcomed by a family of strangers so warmly that I felt like I had maybe always been there, in this green village in rural Bulgaria. I know being invited into a home isn't that uncommon in the Balkans, but when I asked Georgi's daughter if they had guests like us before, she said no. No, he must have just really liked us. We said a tearful goodbye and I got a ride to Sofia. I shelled out for an Airbnb, and since my old Romania companions Christian and Jenny happened to be in Sofia, I invited them to stay. At the house, we got groceries, and I did my best to attempt my new knowledge of Bulgarian home cooking. I can't imagine it was anything special, but that's okay with just how spoiled I felt that week with all these wonderful new friends and family. It all still feels like a dream. Unfortunately, I lost too much time to really get to know Serbia, but I still decided to fly home from Belgrade. At the border, I was the only one taken off the bus and to a garage where the border guard was asking for a bribe. He wanted cigarettes or alcohol, and I said I had neither, so my punishment ended up being him taking forever to go through every inch of my luggage, all while flicking my pocket with my wallet in it. Looking back, I should have just given him some cash, but when he found my ukulele and strummed it, he said, "Super," and let me go. Maybe that was him just realizing I was a musician and therefore didn't have any money. At the hotel in Niš, the first 3 channels I saw were streams of people sleeping, and after my border incident, I thought, Jesus Christ, what is happening in Serbia? Only to realize, oh, they're also doing Big Brother, and we also stream this insane Truman Show idea too. And that's where I'm afraid this all winds down. Niš was nice. Belgrade was nice. The Belgrade hostel promised ghosts, though did not deliver. It was really interesting to see the bombed out buildings from the 90s. And if it were later in the season, I could have experienced one of the famous Danube floating clubs. But I had obligations back home, and was lucky enough to lose all this time to unexpected central Bulgaria. So I boarded Serbia Air, and reflected. Got handed a 2-pronged headphone for a 1-pronged port, was told to fit it by breaking it, and with sound in only one ear, I watched an entire movie before taking off because they were trying to cram 2 shipping containers into storage this whole time before giving up.
Pizza, 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 pizza.